welcome back to part 2 of Rewind Room episode 8. In the last episode, we talked a little bit more about the cable networking era of public television, so many of those shows that only people with cable packages were able to get, channels such as Cartoon Network, Fox Kids, WB Kids, Disney Channel, and of course, Nickelodeon. So, without further ado, we're going to get into part 2, and you're going to learn all about the public broadcasting system and the many amazing shows that it came with. So, without further ado, enjoy part 2. Wow, really good fun facts and trivia section, folks. I think that was amazing. I learned a lot of things that I don't think I even really knew, but you know what's so funny? Even though I got all of those right, a lot of it was just intuition and guessing, to be honest, if I'm being real. A lot of that wasn't even 100% stuff I knew. Some of that was just like, outright guessing. Some things I did know, but some of it was just random guesses.
Well, we lived our entire lives, the formative parts of our lives, around these shows. So it only makes sense that it's like a part of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. And it's gonna be just one of those things that, what was I gonna say? Basically, it's something we may have known of cognitively, and it was always in the back of our heads, but we just weren't thinking about it outright. We just weren't looking at it, and now growing up, we kind of forgot that it was there, but yet at the same time, when you ask the questions, it's still always there, and then it just comes to the forefront, and I think that's mostly what that was, and of course, come on. When you say fast food chain, what fast food chain was more engrossed with the pop culture of its time? Come on.
It still is. Seriously, they won the game on that part.
They absolutely did, and it's because they were innovating all the time. But anyways, let us move out of that section,
Yes.
because as much as we love to talk about fun facts and trivia, we still have another section to cover before we start rounding this episode out, and that is the section about public television.
Yup.
And public television is something that I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about in the news recently with everything going on there. But basically, PBS, for those of you who don't know, just really briefly, is a public broadcasting free-to-air television service reliant on funds from the Corporation from Public Broadcasting, government funding usually, and donations from organizations, foundations, and of course, as they always say, from viewers like us. So even the people are the ones who are putting their money to allow this service to work. And basically, PBS is one of the greatest hallmarks for anyone, children or adult alike. And the reason I say that is because PBS was the service that pretty much has everything for everyone and every age group. Like there's like everything's there. And one of the most popular parts of this well-known network is the fact that they have a children's block called PBS. Well, at the time when I was a kid, it was known as PTV, but now it's known as PBS Kids. And PBS Kids is probably one of the greatest services out there, and many children, whether you knew it or not, likely watched something that aired on PBS Kids. Because PBS Kids, and this was the best part about it, PBS Kids, you could watch their shows even if you didn't have cable. All you had to have was for free. All you had to do was have a TV, an antenna, and something that can connect to, any of the towers. And if you have that, you got PBS.
Which at the time, I believe most families did have, whereas most families didn't always have cable.
Yeah, and it's wild because, as I mentioned in the intro, when I was very young, we did not have cable. We only had the rabbit ears. That sounds out the television. You know what I'm talking about, right?
You put some aluminum foil at the top so that you can get a better connect.
Yep, absolutely, yep. And you always had to place it close to the window and closest. To where your local towers were. And for us up here on the Mountain and Flag, It's on a mountain. And so you always want to try and face it that way to get better signal. Because if it's facing the opposite way anywhere else, you're going to get signal that comes in and out.
Oh my gosh, that makes sense because back when I lived in Flagstaff, my apartment was faced the opposite of the
Yeah.
mountain, and I faced it the opposite of the mountain, and I never got good reception. How funny.
No, exactly. 100%. I think it was just kind of in that whole realm, but PBS Kids, man, Ramona, you and me both actually, for that matter. PBS Kids was a big block for us.
Oh man, people are still talking about it to this day about how impactful it is. I mean, yeah, you can talk about Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, this and that.
Mm.
But one thing that almost every American kid, at least every American kid, has heard of in their lifetime and adult, PBS,
Yeah.
public broadcasting system. Like it's just uh, it was life-changing because education, especially in this country, depending on where you live, good education didn't come free most of the time.
No,
You had to pay
still
in one
doesn't.
way or another. It still doesn't. And PBS was this godsend that was accessible to every single person. Say you didn't have a TV though. Let's say you didn't have a TV. You could
Yeah.
go to the library and they were playing it there,
Yeah.
or you could get it on VHS and watch it at a friend's house. It was everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool part is everybody had their own PBS affiliate. So for us, it's KAET. For somebody else, it might be KPOS or whatever your local PBS station is. Boston, WGBH. You have so many of those affiliates out
Whoa.
there. And it's crazy to think that it's like, even though PBS was one big name, it's unique to every state and community, which I think is amazing.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean they have the same shows and everything, but at the same time it's unique because everyone has their own way of presenting those shows. They get to choose the hour they put it on. They get to make their own animations and whatnot. All they have to mention is that they're an affiliate of the public broadcasting service,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty epic in my opinion.
But how nice though because I grew up in Tucson. That's a little bit of a bigger city. Like,
Yeah,
it's smaller than Phoenix, but bigger than Flagstaff.
sure.
But the fact that living in Flagstaff, you were still able to access something like this is also monumental too. Because imagine how
Sure.
many local counties wouldn't have this if this was only available through cable or through, payment or subscription.
Absolutely. And I think that's why they strove to put on the best shows they could, because they know
Hmm.
if we're giving something for free, the people are going to want something good. Because
Exactly.
the thing is that, most of the time when you hear free, it's usually not great.
No, no.
PBS strove that if we're gonna be doing the best, we're gonna put on the greatest. And the reason they did is because, they also probably figure we have people looking up to us, funding us, and if we don't show up, they can just easily pull that funding back.
Yep. And they also made it so personal to us kids by saying it's because of viewers like you.
Yes.
It made us feel like the heroes too.
Have you ever seen that meme where it says, "When I was a kid, I was always very, thinking of viewers like you," and it's a picture of Michael Scott with his old boss shaking hands, going,
Shaking
"Thank
his
you."
hand.
Yeah, yeah, and then they put on top contributions to your local PV station for viewers like you, and it's like, "Thank you."
Yeah, because as a kid, you don't really understand what it means to publicly fund
Mhm.
something like this. You don't really understand the gravity of what you're watching. Like at the
Absolutely.
time when I was a kid, I didn't realize how monumental Arthur was or how impactful even PBS Kids was.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
never thought about that.
Exactly, and I think a lot of it was, they put on so many amazing shows. Of course, for the adults, you have like Bob Ross, you have Julia Child, you had so many of these kinds of people. And actually, funny enough, I'll bring Bob Ross up again later because I'm going to connect him with another person from the children's lineup.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay, okay.
yeah, so PBS Kids um, was known for providing what I like to call, or what Buster likes to call from Arthur, edutainment.
Edutainment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Edutainment, which is basically, providing fun and educational television while also being entertaining and fun at the same time.
Oh my gosh. What did he say? Bionic Bunny was teaching him something?
Yep. Well, that episode I was telling you about was when Buster says edutainment. He says it's the episode where he saves the cat from the tree and now he's this big shot and he wants to do his
Oh
own TV
my
and then he wants
gosh.
to do his
Yeah.
own TV show Cat Saver and he goes, it's gonna be edutainment. So that's where I
I
got
love
that
that.
that phrase. But speaking of Arthur, many of the popular shows that aired on PBS Kids were as follows: Arthur, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood,
Oh yeah.
Zaboomafoo,
Oh
The Magic School Bus,
yeah.
Barney and Friends, Reading Rainbow,
Oh yeah.
Between the Lions, The Electric Company, Zoom, The Puzzle Place, and so many more that I could probably think that I am probably missing and can't even think of, but were just so monumental to so many
Oh yeah.
people. And almost all of these shows had the best ratings around.
Really?
I mean, Arthur ran for so many years before ending in 2022. Mr. Rogers ran since the 60s and ended in the early 2000s. Um, you know, Barney starts in the late 90s, and you know how big of a monumental thing Barney was. I mean, now people make fun of him now, but be real. The kids who are making fun of him are the very kids who were watching him growing up.
Oh yeah. I was obsessed with Barney growing up. Obsessed.
Same, I mean, Barney and Friends was probably one of the shows where I could just let loose and have fun, but at the same time still learn some valuable concepts. And I think what made it so personable is it includes children like you and me, if that
Oh
makes sense.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, some famous stars that are A-list celebrities now.
Demi
Uh
Lovato,
and Sabrina,
Selena
what's her name?
Gomez.
Selena Gomez. There you go. They got their start on Barney and Friends.
Yeah, I forget the girl. Oh, what's her name? I Madison Pettis, who was in the Game Plan, and she's on like a lot of Disney stuff now
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
She
yeah.
got
Oh
her
my
start
gosh.
on Barney. So many, yeah,
Really?
so many child actors got their start on shows like Barney and Friends and shows like that. Of course, oh, another one that I have to mention is how did I forget? Sesame Street.
Sesame
Can
Street.
you tell me how to get to Sesame Street,
Oh
And
my
it's
gosh.
it's iconic, and it's just so surprising what PBS was able to accomplish with
Oh yeah.
just the few little things that they could, I mean, obviously we talk a lot about Arthur because Arthur's probably, I would say, arguably, I don't know if I'm not going to speak for you, but one of our favorite cartoons, you
No,
know,
you're right about that for sure. You're
and
absolutely right.
speaking of Arthur, I'm wearing him today.
Whoop
No, no, no,
whoop.
no, guys, don't get too excited. It's just a t-shirt, I promise. But basically, yeah, no, Arthur was incredible. It tackled everyday real subjects. And the thing I loved about Arthur was it was willing to be real. You take a show like, and I
Yeah.
know, I know everyone's gonna turn on me the second I say this. You take a show like Caillou, which also aired on PBS Kids.
Oh my gosh.
And that show, it felt like, I mean, I loved it when I was a kid, obviously. Now
Have you rewatched it as an adult?
yeah, and let's
Yeah,
just
I
say I
was
have
about to say.
nightmares. I have nightmares. I'll just say that.
I was about to say.
Um, Caillou tried, I think, to go too much for being too relatable to a kid, meaning trying to present it in how the kid sees it, which is why we see Caillou throwing so many fits, doing all this stuff and all
Hmm.
this.
Yeah.
And the problem is that it tried to go for that too happy-go-lucky style to the point where it now paints a not so real life image for kids. Whereas Arthur did do
Mm,
that.
yeah.
Arthur got consequences. Arthur got grounded. There's times
Yeah.
when his parents are just flat out mad at him,
Yeah.
and it reflects on what people see in reality. I don't remember a single time when Caillou's mom and dad got mad at him.
No, yeah. And if they did, it was very passively done. And something that I really appreciate about Arthur is, like you were saying earlier, how real it is in the way of discussing things that a child should know, but a lot of parents shy off because they think their child is too young to
Yeah,
learn about consequences. They're too young to learn about mature themes. But in reality, a lot of the consequences that, say, DW in Arthur was learning, she's the same age as Caillou pretty much, and the way that they both handled conflict was very different because Caillou was teaching children how to make a problem worse. And
pretty much.
Arthur was teaching children how to overcome that problem.
Exactly. I know people would probably argue with the Arthur's Big Hit episode, but that I think is a special case, number one. I know it's a controversial episode, and I know that there's so many opinions about it out there that I don't really want to get into it, but
Yeah.
I will say this. So many people have told me that DW never got consequenced in the episode when Arthur lost TV for a week.
Oh, I see that all the time on Facebook, especially.
Yeah, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it once. The mom did explicitly say, "We will deal with what she did. We just didn't see what happened on camera."
Absolutely.
I
And
think,
oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
So sorry about that.
Oh,
So
no, no,
sorry.
no, no, no. You're good. You're good. I was just going to say that I think that the thing is that all these people are saying, "We want to see her get consequenced for touching Arthur's plane." And I think the reason people feel for Arthur is because, yes, he did tell her not to touch it multiple times. Yes, he said all these different things, but Arthur probably could have took some more precautions than just leaving it in his room. Number one. Number two, I think regardless of what your sibling does, hitting is never the answer.
Absolutely, because that teaches children that if they don't agree with something, that they can physically take it out on somebody else.
Exactly. And regardless of, and people always ask me, do you think DW deserved to get hit? I don't think anyone should deserve a violent consequence unless you are defending yourself from another violent action.
That's really well said. That's really well said.
But I
But
do think Arthur had a case to be mad.
1000%, he set boundaries. He set expectations to his sister by saying, "Hey, this is a model airplane. It can't fly. It's not a toy."
Hmm.
You know?
And
But
yeah,
one could question, like, could Arthur have, brought his parents into the picture prior to DW breaking the model airplane and explained to them
mhm.
how important this was to them? Do you personally think that that would have changed the outcome of the episode?
1000%. And the reason I say that is because Arthur simply let his emotions get to him. And no
Mm,
matter what in life, when you act out of violence, you lose the battle completely. No matter how good a case you had, no matter
mm.
how good of a reason you had, the second you lay your hand on somebody, you lose,
And I
basically.
think a lot of people lose sight of that message from this specific Arthur episode, just because, like you said, it's very controversial. And I feel like a lot of people get emotional in the way of, like, oh, no one wants their personal belongings to be broken or to get stolen or to be stolen or whatever. But we also have to recognize that people make mistakes too.
Yeah.
And shows like these have to exemplify and lead by example. Like, what
Mhm.
kind of example would Arthur have left us if Arthur didn't get in trouble for hitting DW? That would have
100%.
shown millions of kids that they can beat on their younger siblings.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I truly believe that mom and dad probably did speak to DW afterwards.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she probably lost some TV time as well, or
Yeah.
lost something. I know the one sentiment I hear about that is we wish we could have seen it. Now, here's where I make my counter argument. Just because we don't see it, does that necessarily rule out that they at least had a talking to with her? I mean, does it exactly rule it out? But also, does it rule out the fact that both are guilty?
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
one took a physical action, henceforth losing the battle completely compared to had he, like you said, called his mom or whatnot. And I know what you're all gonna say. They're kids. But let's be real, Arthur is 8 years old
Yeah. And DW's four.
and DW is four. And yes, there are many times DW outsmarts Arthur, but Arthur, being eight, should have been the responsible one.
Absolutely. I mean, also just take into account size variations. And then later on in
Hmm.
the same episode, you have Binky
Yeah,
punching Arthur.
and it's the same, it's the exact same thing. Now Arthur's the younger person, and Binky is this big bully. And yeah, they're the same age, but let's be real, taking a hit from Binky versus Arthur is two very different things.
It's night and day.
It's night and day. And of course, a lot of that's because Binky's peer pressured and he's listening to the wrong people.
Yeah.
And I always say, whenever Molly says, if you wanted to let other people, if you didn't want to listen to what others said, you shouldn't have let them in. At that point, Binky, you should have just disbanded the club. Because
I
I
love
mean,
Molly though.
because if
Molly's
Binky says he
savage.
founded it, he could have easily said, "Okay, then I'm defounding it," you know. But but of course, Binky
Oh my
goes through it.
gosh.
But again, the bigger lesson I think in that episode is just, um,
Violence doesn't solve anything.
violence doesn't solve anything. I think that's the main thing, and it's kind of like, okay, yes, Arthur had a case to be mad. I hear that.
Yeah.
He absolutely had a right to be angry. But the second you use violence, you lose no matter how good of an argument you may have had.
No, absolutely. And I think
Take that
uh
to the bank with you.
exactly, cash that in. I think
Cash
a
it
lot
in.
of people assume that, things in childhood, things that happen in childhood happen innocently. No, children deserve consequences as well, not
Absolutely.
just adults.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that Arthur exemplified perfectly.
Yep.
Another thing really quick before I shift from Arthur is another thing I think that I liked about Arthur was his friend group felt the most real of all of the shows I've ever watched.
I think it
Because
was the most diverse cast ever I've ever
exactly.
seen.
And the thing I liked too is that Arthur's friend group weren't necessarily the popular kids like at school. Sure, were they the popular kids of their friend group and of their subculture? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But
Arguably, yeah, you could
yeah,
argue that, yeah.
but technically they're a bunch of kids who were kind of like loners and they just bonded together and that's how they made kind of an in crowd. I mean, they weren't an in crowd, but you get what I'm saying. And then, of
Yeah.
course, you have characters that come along later, like Fern and George, who are a lot more shy and have a harder time making friends. And we
Yeah.
see that the one who's always willing to go out of his way for them is Arthur himself.
That's a really great point. On another note regarding how, the ensemble that they had in Elwood City, they also didn't just make Arthur about Arthur. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? There
No,
were
there.
so many episodes dedicated to each character where it's building the character arc for them, because how many countless episodes were we moved by that were centered around Binky or Jenna or George or Francine,
Or even DW had her
or
own
even
episodes.
DW, exactly, or even Pal and
And
Baby
Kate.
Kate.
Yeah, they had their own episodes. And it's like everyone got a piece of development. Just because it had his
Hmm.
name on it, everyone felt included. You got to know
Absolutely.
everyone. It wasn't just like, oh, this is the main character and these are my friends. You got to know every single person
Oh yeah.
on Arthur. You got to understand who they were. You learned about their background. For instance, I mentioned earlier, Brain celebrates Kwanzaa. He represents, African Americans, and you get
Yeah.
episodes about him. And you see, Brain is smart, but he has anxiety. We see that countless times
You also
throughout.
see that he was held back too, and
He was held back.
that didn't hold him back either.
No, actually, he even admits later, it helped me, and it's helped
Hmm.
me become the person I am to this day, you know?
Absolutely.
And and even Francine,
Hmm.
Francine is Jewish. She celebrates Hanukkah.
Yeah.
But the thing I also love about Francine is she can also be one of the meanest people as well.
She's a savage, absolutely.
Because, and sometimes she's even worse than Binky, I would say, because
Oh,
Binky, the thing with him is I don't really see him as a bully that's like, oh, I'm Mr. Mean Guy, I'm Mr. This and this, I wanna, you know, just make your life miserable. He has a soft spot. And
he's
when you
misunderstood.
He's misunderstood. And when you reach that soft spot, and I would argue that all of the tough customers are misunderstood because even you get
Hmm.
episodes about them and you realize, holy cow, these all people have depth. Molly gives good advice. Rattles
Literally.
can play chess,
Hmm.
and then Slink eventually learns that, he's a good paper boy,
Yeah.
you
Every
know?
every single character is treated like the main character.
Mhm.
I know for a fact Arthur helped me deal with a lot of internal anxieties that I had, and I will
Yeah.
forever be thankful to Mark Brown for creating Arthur. An
Yeah.
episode that I can think of specifically that impacted me, even to this day, I think about how it impacted me, was the episode where Jenna goes to the sleepover and
Oh
she
yeah.
has to bring, her wet naps because she has a bedwetting issue.
Yeah, yeah, her
And
pull-ups.
yeah, and growing up, I was the only person that I knew who had a bedwetting issue up until the age of like 10 or 11. And
Sure.
it was a very touchy subject for me. And it made me feel ashamed pretty much that I had a bedwetting issue.
Hmm.
And seeing that episode, it didn't stop me from feeling shame, but it helped me start understanding that I shouldn't feel shame about it. And then
Sure.
from there, I started working on how I saw myself and whatnot. So, an episode like that, helping someone like me with a low self esteem, a
Mhm.
medical issue, things like that, and then seeing that on public broadcasting
Yeah.
was huge.
Yeah, I mean, wow, thank you for sharing that. That's really crazy. I'll share something as well. I was diagnosed with asthma as a young kid, and it's something
And
that
then
still
Buster.
follows me. Yeah, and Buster, and I had a lot of people that didn't understand asthma when they were kids, and they sometimes would treat me differently, or they would, start kind of poking at me because I need to slow down when we were being very physical in activity.
Oh, I get you, my friend.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Shoot, I don't. Oh, my mind's over on my record player. Shoot, but yeah, I have one as well. Yeah, I always have to carry it with me, but it made me more comfortable to know that I wasn't alone. Buster felt very real to me in that sense. He has
Yeah.
asthma, and then he realizes that the best way he can teach his friends is by explaining what asthma is. It's not a disease. It's just a medical condition that I have
It's not
that,
contagious or scary or anything in
yeah,
that
to
way.
Francine, you don't need your penicillin. I mean, no, your pencil and no, you do need your pencil and pen, but yeah.
Another great point that I didn't really see in any other TV show is economic diversity.
Yes.
And I mean that by you see episodes where the Frenskies are struggling. They're struggling to
Oh
make
yeah.
ends meet. They're struggling financially when it comes to like the social outcome of Elwood City's gatherings, things like that. There are
Mhm.
times where Mr. Frensky is like, sorry, Francine, like you can't do that because, we have to pay rent, and you saw them living in a humble two-bedroom apartment, and then you have the class division when Muffy stays the night because of the flooding or
I
because
was
of
gonna bring that episode up. Yeah, poor Muffy.
exactly. So you see as a child that everyone has a different upbringing. Not everyone lives in a two-bedroom house with a white picket fence and a dog.
Yep.
Not everyone lives the life that Arthur lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And another episode that made me think of that is the episode when Francine wants a new bike, and
Oh
her
yeah.
dad gives her a hand-me-down essentially.
Yeah.
And she gets embarrassed, and then of course that accidentally gets thrown in the garbage because she leaves it behind a roll of trash one
Yeah.
day, and she
And
finally
Mr.
learns.
Frensky gets sad.
He gets sad, and then that's when they come up with the idea to redecorate the bike.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm not gonna lie, some of the best things I've gotten were hand-me-downs, to be honest with you.
100%.
And
Absolutely.
whatnot, and such. But I thought that was another cool one that explained that. But no, I absolutely 100% agree. Arthur was a show that was really for everyone, that allowed you to really sink in and understand every single character and truly understand what really life is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, and we tip our hats off and put our mugs up for the legacy that Mark Brown so beautifully laid out for us and for the future generations to come.
Absolutely. Transitioning now from Arthur, as much as I love to talk about all of these shows we watched,
Oh
another
yes,
one I
yes.
do want to bring up that I think is important to mention is Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Oh, absolutely.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was a show that ran from the late 60s to about 2001. It was centered around a man by the name of Fred Rogers. He would come in, he would change his out of his suit jacket into a sweater, he would change his shoes, and he would visit with you as though you were in that house with him.
Hmm.
And he would talk to you as though you were an actual person. He made you feel as though you were valued. He never forgot about you. Even when he introduces you to other people, he always points to the camera and says, I'd like you to know my neighbor, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And stuff like that. And Mr. Rogers was, I think, just such a pioneer because of the gentle nature he had and the fact that,
Mm.
he created a safe space for children to be able to understand the way of the world and their fears and to be able to be comfortable with who they are as a human being.
That's a really great point. I think as much as pop culture loves to reference Mr. Rogers, I think he's still so overlooked
I
as to
think he is
how he
too.
impacted us.
100%. I would agree. I think the reason that is because he's easy to make fun of. I will say that.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
oh my gosh, the man's been parodied so much. Saturday Night Live, Eddie Murphy parodied him. Burger King parodied him at one
Oh
time.
my gosh.
He is easy to parody, but at the end of the day, I think his message, it's because it's so genuine and it's so um what's the word I'm looking for? It's so heartwarming, I guess, for lack of a better
Hmm.
term, that you can't help but just love what he's trying to accomplish and just love what he's trying to teach. And the thing I loved about Mr. Rogers too was he was big on the concept of exploring your imagination and that play can
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
be the greatest thing you can do as a child. Because even when the episode he talked about work, he said, children work too through play. He said play is the best thing.
Oh.
Yeah, he said that in one of his episodes, I believe. And so yeah, it was wild, to hear a man saying that, and of course he had a segment where you'd go into make believe and then there are a bunch of puppets, which fun fact, were all voiced by Mr. Rogers himself, mostly. I think there were a couple that weren't.
I
But
didn't know
like
that. That's so
you
funny.
didn't know that King Friday, Queen
No.
Sarah, Lady Elaine Fairchild, Daniel Tiger, they were all Mr. Rogers.
Ah, that makes sense now. I guess as a kid, you're not thinking about those things, but oh my gosh, I have to go back and rewatch it.
Yep. And I will say this, the neighborhood of Maple Leaf had such an array of different characters. You had Mr. Aber, you had Mayor Maggie, you had Lady Aberlin, you had so many wonderful people who were on that same level as Mr.
Mm.
Rogers, and you could tell had the same exact goals.
Oh
Even
my
though they were
gosh.
different people, which was incredible. And I will say this,
Mhm.
if you as a kid did not crush on Lady Aberlin, you are lying. You are lying
Here,
100%.
how do you spell her name?
Well, her full name is Betty Aberlin, so Aberlin, I think.
Here, I'm looking her up on the
Yeah,
Google.
the only reason I say that is because I remember I had a
You're
friend
right.
in.
You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
I'm telling you, you are lying. You
1000%.
are lying if you say you did not have a
1000.
crush on Lady Aberlin as a
Oh
kid.
my gosh. Now I have a reason to go back and watch Mr. Rogers actually, besides
Oh, you're
uh,
welcome.
the peak interest. Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
no, for 100%. I'm just saying. And also, if you didn't root for her, Mr. Aber, you're also lying. You're also
Oh
so.
my gosh.
So, hey, no, we're all here for that. But anyhow, back to the actual core message of Mr. Rogers. The biggest thing I loved about Mr. Rogers was he wasn't afraid to tackle more difficult topics.
Mm,
And two of
yeah.
the most biggest topics that I can think of that he tackled was divorce and even the
Okay.
concept of war in episodes that you can't find anymore because PBS deemed it too disturbing for television.
Wow.
So I'll give you a little background. So in the 80s, with the divorce rates going up so high, Mr. Rogers did an episode on the episode I think is called Marriage or something like that. And he's talking with Mr. McFeely, who another wonderful person. I would even call him Mr. Rogers' sidekick.
Okay.
Basically, he was the speedy delivery man who would,
Oh, that's right. Yes, yes,
yeah, he
yes.
would bring films to watch or things that Mr. Rogers would need. He calls Mr. McFeely. And another fun fact, the reason he got the name Mr. McFeely is that's actually Mr. Rogers' middle name, Fred McFeely Rogers.
McFeely, how cool of a name is that? That's so
So
awesome.
Mr. McFeely is there and he's talking about his when he got married to his wife. Now, in the show, his wife, Mrs. McFeely, is played by a much younger actress made to look like somebody of his own age.
Ah,
But
okay.
David Newell, who played Mr. McFeely, they actually showed actual footage from his wedding when he actually got married. And he talks about how
Oh.
amazing marriage is. And then Mr. Rogers brings up divorce, and Mr. McFeely rushes out of the room because he doesn't want to talk about it. And then Mr.
Oh, okay.
Rogers confronts the audience by saying, "Did you ever know anyone whose parents got married and then later got a divorce?"
Whoa.
And he went into talking about it and saying, I knew a boy and girl whose mom and dad got a divorce later on in their marriage. And he says, and those children cried and cried. And he says, do you know why? He says, for one, they thought it was all their fault. And he says, of course, it wasn't their fault. And he makes it clear that
Wow.
divorce is never a child's fault, which is something I think so many kids of that era needed to hear.
Wow.
And then went as far to say, that just because, a couple might divorce and fall out of love with each other doesn't mean they're going to lose the love they have for you, you know?
Wow. And I can't even imagine the amount of children who needed to hear that.
Yeah. And he sat down and he looked at the audience and told them that straight up. Like he didn't hide behind anything, he didn't tell any stories. He just
Wow.
straight up told them how it was.
You know, now that I think about it, I don't believe I've seen that episode, but I'm going to go back and rewatch the
It
show
was a bit
just
of an
for that
it
episode.
was a bit of an older one, because a
Okay.
lot of those episodes were airing, I think, around the 80s and 90s. Again, Mr.
That would
Rogers
make sense.
did go off the air in the early 2000s, but the reason we know Mr. Rogers is Mr. Rogers aired in reruns until I think
Yeah.
about 2009, so right after we got out of our young years.
Yeah,
So
no.
Mr. Rogers lived on in our youth, and a lot of those episodes were rebroadcasted every week. So, and it was just incredible just to see what it was like and the things he did. And he also did an episode on war, believe it or not.
Yeah. It's hard to wrap my head around that. Tell me more.
So, the episode on war, it was a week of episodes titled Conflict. And
Whoa.
basically, the whole premise was Mr. Rogers, he does his normal thing. He talks about various normal things, but then he also kind of brings up the concept of, conflict that's going on between countries, because this is when the height of the Cold War was going on. And in the 80s, with the
Yep.
thought of nuclear war possibly happening, he wanted to address it to his audience. And in the neighborhood of make believe, there is a segment. Okay, I think you're gonna lose it when you hear this, but there's a segment in the neighborhood of make believe where King Friday gets wind that Westwood is making bombs. Let me say that again,
What?
making bombs.
I
And
never heard I never thought I would hear the word bomb in children's TV show used in the
right?
same sentence.
Right? I know. And that whole week, Mr. Rogers talks about the importance with, discussions, between people
Mm,
and making it kind of like
okay.
discussions between countries, coming together and understanding, and a lot of those things. And then the week ends, thankfully, with them realizing no bombs are not being made. Um,
Okay.
but then he ends his episode in a very stark manner by saying that he's happy that he can talk about things like war and conflict with his
Wow.
audience. And then he goes outside and he sings the song Peace and Quiet for the very first time. He walks off and then a Bible quote is shown on screen. Mr. Rogers was a religious person, and he was
Mm,
also a minister for people who didn't know. He was I don't know if he was Presbyterian or he was he was ordained.
wow.
And his mission, instead of obviously preaching to the masses, was to help children, and that's why he had his show.
Well, he was definitely one of those people that knew his calling early on.
Hmm. And then unfortunately, I think around the 90s sometime, PBS actually pulled the conflict episodes and they have been lost ever since because, yeah.
Not even on YouTube?
If you can find one on YouTube occasionally, make sure you download it or get some form of it because it goes fast. Like you have to find
Wow.
people who actually recorded them on their initial broadcast in order to watch them.
Wow.
Like that's how big of a thing they were.
That's pretty intense. But Mr. Rogers was huge, and he still is. But at the time in the early 2000s, one of the biggest crossovers of our time really was when Mr. Rogers went to Elwood City.
Yes. Oh, that was one of the most amazing episodes of Arthur. It's called Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers. And
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers goes to Elwood City. Arthur's jazzed because he's going to be staying with him. And then Arthur gets embarrassed when all his friends start kind of making fun of Mr. Rogers and thinking that
No,
he's
yeah.
just a baby show, and whatnot. And again, most of those kids were lying because they probably watched Mr. Rogers in some form. Binky for sure was
Yeah.
lying. Yeah.
We all know that Binky tries to put on a facade, though.
I need to find that clip when Binky sings the Mr. Rogers song mockingly and then Mr. Rogers actually pulls up on him. Yeah, because he's in the classroom and Binky's like, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a lovely day." And here come Mr. Rapper and Mr. Rogers walking up behind him. And Mr. Rogers just in the calmest voice, calmest, friendly voice. Arthur's told me about you. You must be Binky Barnes. And that's all it took to completely disarm Binky. He just goes, "Can I have your autograph?" I gotta find that. We gotta get that up on the Insta.
Oh my
We
gosh.
gotta get
Yes,
that up.
please.
I gotta find that episode. Yeah, and I gotta get that up because that was priceless.
Yeah, yeah.
But but no, absolutely that. And then Mr. Rogers did a crossover again on his show when he brought Arthur in a puppet form into the neighborhood of make believe.
Oh my goodness.
And he
Okay.
got to go visit Mark Brown and see how Arthur was made, and even got to meet
Whoa.
Michael Yarmish, who was the original voice of Arthur.
The original voice of Arthur. Oh my gosh, that takes me back.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool too. So it was cool that Mr. Rogers was willing to also show how his show is made. And he was very upfront with his audience saying, "This is my television home. This isn't a real home." And he had episodes where he would cut back and you'd see his whole television house with the studio and cameras.
Oh, that is so awesome. Oh
Yeah,
my
he,
gosh.
he kept it real. He kept it
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering. So this is a random question. If they
Sure.
were to do a Mr. Rogers reboot, obviously with a different actor, do you think you would give it a chance?
No.
No, that's fair. I don't think
There's
I would
there's
either.
only one Fred Rogers.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that for sure.
Hmm. There is only one for Rogers. I have the indication that my light might be dying soon, so we'll pick it up. But you know what? If it does, we'll be fine.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
giving that warning out in case you guys see it go down at any point. So, yeah, let's keep trucking.
Yeah.
We covered two of PBS's biggest shows, but the last one I think I really want to kind of get into. Again, as much as I'd love to get into all these shows, we just don't have the time, unfortunately. Which is why stay tuned, folks, because we will be doing episodes on these specific shows eventually.
Yep.
And so the last one I can really think of, I don't know about you, Ramona, but like the biggest one I can think of. Did you ever watch Reading Rainbow when you were young?
Oh my gosh. Butterfly in the sky.
I can go
I can go
twice as
twice as
high.
high.
Take a
It's
look. It's
it's
in
in
a
a book.
book, a
A
reading
reading rainbow.
rainbow.
Reading
Reading
rainbow.
rainbow.
There you go, guys.
Reading we try.
I know.
Reading Rainbow was one of the greatest children's show of all time. And the reason I say that is Sesame Street might have been pioneering in the sense that it is the most highly rated children's show of all time. It allowed children to be who they truly are and everything. But let's be real. How many shows do you know that got kids to read? And not only read, learn to love reading.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can only think of one other show, but that show was directly inspired by Reading Rainbow. And I'm thinking of Between the Lions, but Reading
Yeah.
Rainbow really set the stage for it.
Reading Rainbow was probably one of the greatest TV shows that I've ever seen. It was a show that I loved. It was a show that I think truly changed the way we think of public television
Without a doubt.
and moreover. it put a person of color in the forefront of a television show.
Oh my gosh.
LeVar
Yes.
Burton, you
Oh
know?
my gosh,
And
LeVar.
and to tell you the truth, LeVar was almost kind of like probably the closest you could get to another Mr. Rogers.
Yeah,
And the reason
up
I
there
say that
for
is
sure.
because he, just like Mr. Rogers, had the exact same goals in place and was just such a wonderful, caring person. And the thing I loved was how every episode of Reading Rainbow, they would tackle something set on that book's theme.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I love that they even were willing to show how certain things were made. They went out and you got to see all these array of things. They covered everything from volcanoes to
Farm eggs.
to what?
To farm eggs.
Farm eggs, yeah. To even covering oh, what was I gonna say? Birth. I'm not even joking. There's an
Earth.
episode on birth. The book that it was centered around was called, excuse me, it was called On the Day You Were Born.
Whoa.
And it's basically a book celebrating, life and somebody being born and whatnot, because it's really a big deal if you think about it, the
Oh yeah.
concept of being alive and just the fact that you're born, because so many people I think take that for granted. And on the show, they actually showed a woman who was due to give birth soon, how the process works.
Whoa, that's heavy for a kid show.
Yeah, and they even went as far as, and they didn't show anything too graphic, but they
Okay.
shot it from the side, how a baby is born.
Wow.
And
I definitely missed that episode.
you want to talk about groundbreaking? You don't
Yeah.
get more groundbreaking than that, I don't think.
Oh my gosh. I don't even think a single show now would ever do that.
No, and Reading Rainbow was brave enough to do it. But the thing I loved about Reading Rainbow is, I don't know if you did this a lot, but I can speak for only for myself. Did you ever, there it goes, did you ever go to the library and check out any of the books that were featured on Reading Rainbow to read them for yourself afterwards?
You know, as
I
much
knew it.
as I would have loved to have loved reading as a kid. I mean, I enjoyed reading around the age of like maybe 10 or 11 and on. Before that, I wasn't really read to as a kid. Maybe I have like a vague
Okay,
memory of being read maybe one book.
okay.
My parents were very busy with their lives that like a lot of, the nurturing that came from literature came from LeVar.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, that's perfectly valid. That's perfectly valid answer. 100%. The only reason I brought that up is because that was something I did when
Oh, that's
I
a
was
beautiful
younger.
tradition. That's a
Um,
beautiful tradition.
is I'd see an episode of Reading Rainbow, and then I'd want to go get the book right afterwards, and then me and my mom would
Mm.
would read the book together. And then the best part also was, do you remember they'd have the kids review books near the end?
I think I have a vague memory of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
LeVar would be like, like for instance, let's say, podcasting is an amazing way to get your voice heard, but it's not the only way to get it heard as well. So here are three books that might get you to speak up a little, but you don't have to take my word for it.
Oh my gosh. I do remember that. Oh man, Blast from the Past.
Yeah,
Holy
LeVar, that
moly.
was incredible, and the thing about reading Rainbow, I think that, and then I love how, the thing was is that, then they bring the kids out, and I would
Mhm.
come to learn later, they didn't script that for the kids. They said, read the book and tell us what you think.
They didn't script it?
No,
Oh my gosh.
if you get the chance to, you need to check out a documentary, and I'm going to put it out there for you folks as well. It's called Butterfly in the Sky. It's on Netflix. It's about the
Butterfly
making
in
of
the
Reading
Sky.
in Rainbow. It's an incredible documentary. It goes over how Reading Rainbow was made, how they got the funding, and what exactly they were trying to accomplish with it.
That's going on my list for sure.
For sure, yeah. Another one of my favorite episodes was, did you ever see the episode Amazing Grace?
Remind me again what happens in it.
Amazing Grace, basically, it's LeVar. He's on a stage and he's talking about, how it is to, want to shine and want to be a star and stuff. And then he brings a book called Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace is a story about a young girl who's going to appear in a production of Peter Pan. But the thing is, she wants to play Peter Pan, and the boys all tell her she can't because she's a girl.
You know what? I think I have vague memories. Is she like short blonde hair? I
No,
could be
she
wrong about
it's
that.
no, she has black hair.
Oh, then I definitely need to rewatch it for a
Okay,
refresher, but I think I get the general
that
idea.
was one of my favorites just because of the whole message of the story and
Well, that sounds like a
whatnot.
great
And
story.
yeah, and in the end, she actually does get to be Peter Pan. And
Oh
I think, as you know,
man.
there are many iterations where Peter Pan is not a played by a boy out there.
No, yeah, yeah. Well, they just released like within the past 4 years a new, or within the past three actually, a new Peter Pan where Peter Pan is actually an African American.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that, kind of pushes that whole thing to the forefront. And also when you're a kid, it's a whole different thing.
Oh yeah.
And whatnot. And that's what that's all about. And then, there's also episodes. Bread is for Eating's another one of my favorite, which celebrates the whole community of bread. Because really, if you think about it,
Oh yeah.
every culture and every tradition has a bread attached to it,
Yeah. Wow.
you know?
See, even as an adult, you learn new things.
Exactly. And I still learn new things from LeVar and everybody, but really, Reading Rainbow was a show that when I go back and I think of it, it really warms my heart because of how much it got me to not only love reading, but to understand how valuable it is. And
Yeah.
I know go ahead.
No, no, no. I'm thinking. Apologies.
Oh, you're good. I was just gonna say, it's just one of those things where, even if you weren't into that, it exposed you to new worlds and new ways of looking at things, and it tackled concepts that you don't really think about nowadays.
Yeah.
And it wasn't afraid to go there either. And that's one thing I think that all three of these shows have in common. They weren't afraid to be real. They weren't afraid to tell it as it was. And they were willing to say, children aren't dumb. They're human beings who understand completely how the world works, what we
Oh
think
yeah.
of them, and more importantly, where their place will be in the future.
That's the thing. We limit our children by telling them that they only think like children, but they can grasp and understand nuanced concepts that us adults barely understand, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Reading
Or
Rainbow even
we,
had an episode on mummies. Mummies are usually only kept
oh,
for adult audiences because they're seen as scary things.
yeah.
And Reading Rainbow explored, the concept of what mummification really was and how, for the ancient Egyptians, it was actually an honorary ceremony, despite how grueling of a process it was.
Yeah, and to think that we had all of this, what seems to be infinite information at, in the palm of our hands for free is amazing.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that PBS, I think, did better than most of the other channels. I'm not saying cable failed or that they did
No, I
less.
I would actually disagree with that and say that PBS did it best. Mic
Okay,
drop.
okay, sounds good. No, absolutely. I think they did do it the best. But what I'm trying to say is every one of those channels had something special, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But PBS allowed children to have a voice and truly
100%.
said, speak up, we're listening.
Yeah.
And
No matter where you live, what you look like, who your family is, what kind of family you have, how much money you come from,
Mhm.
it didn't matter.
And before we move to the next section, one thing I did want to mention is Reading Rainbow also did do an episode covering 9/11
Yeah,
when that
yeah.
happened, because Reading Rainbow didn't end its run, I think, until the mid 2000s, and for a very tragic reason. And that was because of the No Child Left Behind Act. And because
Yeah.
PBS was not willing to conform with that, they got their funding pulled.
Wow.
So I'm not gonna get into the whole debate about the No Child Left Behind Act. I mean, that could be a whole episode itself, but I will say it was sad that it made Reading Rainbow basically become obsolete.
Oh man,
And
that's
but
tough.
back to what I was saying. So the episode on 9/11 was really interesting. There's a book called The Tin Forest. It's about an old man who lives kind of in the middle of nowhere and he has a whole bunch of stuff around his house and he ends up building a forest out of all of the junk that nobody wants. and in the end, the forest comes to life. But
Oh, wow.
and this is where the kicker is, and you don't really get it until you grow up. The ending of the book says there was an old house in the middle of nowhere that had the things that everyone wanted, and in that house lived an old man who never stopped dreaming.
Oh,
So I
wow.
think I think you can kind of get it. The forest may have never truly came to life, but in his mind, that became a real forest.
How did they, I'm curious, how did they tie that into 9/11?
So basically, it was the concept of, um, you know, looking for something in the middle of nothing. It focused on a
Whoa.
group of children who were closest to Ground Zero, where the Twin Towers stood, and
Wow.
basically focused on their school. And basically, PS 234 was the school's name. They were not far at all, I think, from
I think they were
the
about
World Trade Center.
a block. I
They
think they
were
were
like a few blocks from the World
yeah.
Trade Center. They had to evacuate, obviously because of what had happened, the tragedy. And it was one of those things. And LeVar actually goes to the school when the school reopens, and they're
Wow.
actually able to come back. And he talks with the kids about what happened. He says, it's one thing for us who saw it on television, but what was it like for you who were able to look out your window and you see two buildings burning because planes
Well,
hit them?
I was 5 and you were about
I
4,
was
right?
about 4. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were the same age almost as
Mhm.
those kids who were viewing it and experiencing it firsthand.
Exactly, and he talked about it with them, and some of the kids were saying, it was scary. And I don't even want to imagine what it was like to stand there and see a horror unfolding before your eyes.
Absolutely.
You
Oh,
know,
I don't even want to think about how the parents felt knowing that their kids were right next to a terrorist attack, you know?
exactly, and the kids decide that they want to say thank you to the community that helped so many of them. And they make a
Wow.
music video and it's titled "We're Back Where We Belong." I'm not gonna lie, you will start crying.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to put that on the Instagram
I'll send it to you. I'll
uh
send it to you.
come our episode in September on 9/11.
Yeah, and stay tuned for that, folks, because we are going to cover in September how 9/11 affected the media because it really affected
Yes.
media in a big way. And we will address the Tin Forest in that
Yes.
episode too. So stay tuned because we'll give a more thorough in depth than that one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but no, it was it was incredible what PBS was able to accomplish, and the fact that they were willing to be so honest with everything.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really hard to see something that genuine nowadays, at least in my opinion. It comes it's a needle in a haystack.
Absolutely, 100%. So before we move on to our next section, I just want to say, thank you to PBS for everything that you've done.
Yeah.
And we hope
Seriously.
that with everything going on right now, you can continue to provide the same networking for not just children, but for so many others who depend on it.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna touch more on that a little bit later, but I
Yes.
just wanted to give you a little brief list on the shows that I also grew up,
Yes,
watching
let's
on
hear it, please.
PBS, just in case some of you guys also grew up on these, and then let me know if you, recognize any of these titles as well.
Okay.
The Book of Virtues
Yes.
was an animated, show that was great
Adventure
that
from
not
the
a
Book
lot
of
of
Virtues.
not a lot of people know about it.
Yeah.
And then we have, of course, the Teletubbies. And then we
Yep.
had, like we talked about earlier, Dragon Tales. And
Dragon
then,
Tales.
you know what? Funny enough, my mom, and I'm going to talk about this right now, my mom
Yes.
also watched Clifford, even though Clifford technically came out around the late
Yes.
90s.
Clifford
She
the Big
also
Red
watched
Dog.
that. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then some more Asian representation. We had Sagwa the Siamese cat.
Yes, Sagwa.
And then for you history buff kids, we had Liberty Kids. That was so great.
Liberty's
S-
Kids.
Science and math kids, like John mentioned earlier, Cyber Chase. For kids looking for that elevated Dora experience, you had Maya and Miguel, pretty much PBS's
Oh
first
yeah.
installation of Hispanic characters with their own show.
That was
Um,
pretty big too. I loved Maya and
yeah.
Miguel.
And one could argue, oh, well, Dragon Tales, Max and Emmy are both Hispanic too. But Maya and Miguel, the show is based on their Mexican heritage and roots.
It was brought
Whereas,
more to the forefront.
Exactly, exactly. Where in Dragon Tales, it was sort of just an afterthought detail. And
Mhm.
then another favorite of mine that is in the world of Arthur called Postcards from Buster.
Hey,
Such a
Buster,
great show.
where you off to?
Oh
What you
my
doing,
gosh.
Buster? Where you
Oh
going
man.
now?
You
Yeah.
know, I didn't travel as a kid. Obviously, you're a kid. But let me tell you the amount of places I visited while watching postcards from Buster. It was
Postcards from
insane.
Buster. There you go.
Yeah. Oh man. But I just wanted to quickly also mention that my mom enjoyed many of the shows that I actually just listed because I grew up watching them.
Mhm.
And I believe a part of that was because during her own childhood, I'm convinced that she watched shows with me to also, heal her inner child. And I feel like a lot of our parents do that as well. I'm sure like when your parents watch Arthur with you, they also feel a sense of healing
Yeah.
inside.
My mom even mentioned one time Mr. Rogers felt like a second father to her.
Oh, that's
That
beautifully
was
stated.
literally what my mother said because of the man that he was. Really, Mr. Rogers didn't just speak to kids. I think he still speaks to adults. And the
He
thing
still
is,
does.
if you were to ask him to this day, he would say, I'm speaking to you. He wouldn't say to the children. He wouldn't say to this. He'd say, I'm speaking to you as you are.
Oh man. Can we all vote John to be the next Fred Rogers?
I don't know if I have it in me 100%, to be honest with
Oh
you.
man, I'm sure Mr. Rogers said the exact same thing.
I don't I mean he might have, but at the same time, I mean he had a goal of helping children, and I'm
That's
not
true.
saying I don't. I'm just saying I don't know.
John's like, I don't like children.
Yeah, right. No, that
Oh my gosh.
no, I do like children in in
Mm.
in my own way, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. But these shows, they nurtured us. They nurtured our curiosity. They taught us about kindness, empathy, diversity,
Hmm.
and they helped
Oh,
us understand the world.
another show I forgot to mention. Bill Nye the Science Guy. How do we forget this one?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I really only grew up watching it on a rainy day at school, so you're gonna have
Oh,
to tell me
really?
about it.
Okay, I'll be brief. Bill Nye the Science Guy was basically a 30-minute show, and basically it just tackled everything science-wise, everything from concepts like, pressure and the water cycle to even more
Oh.
advanced concepts like momentum, which I didn't even realize momentum was a thing until Mr. Nye mentioned it. And then he taught about these things, and he was always fun. He had this fun element. He'd always have these little segments that were like based on old TV shows sometimes that were teaching
Mm.
it, and sometimes he'd have this whole thing like, be like so and so. No, understand your momentum, and then at the end he would do like a mock music video on said subject.
Did you
So
ever have to make a music video in middle school or elementary school that mimicked Bill Nye?
no, I never did, but
No.
one of the infamous ones was the one on Momentum. They parodied Moriarty's "The More You Ignore Me, the Closer I Get"
I don't
to.
think I'm familiar with that.
Okay, I didn't think you would be, but they parodied that and they changed it to "The faster you push me, the farther I get."
Oh, okay, okay.
And then there was another one I think that mimicked. Oh, I forget the group. There were some that mimicked like AC/DC songs and other bands. I'm not even joking. No, I'm not even joking. It was incredible, but I think there's one that even mimicked Nirvana at one time.
No way.
Yeah, I think there are some still out there on the web that I'll have to find and send your way, Bill Nye.
That's funny.
Yeah, but he
We'll
was
have to post them
incredible.
on the Instagram, like the
Yeah,
super funny ones.
yeah, the super funny ones I'll have to post for sure.
Yeah.
But I'll get you some of those for sure. But anyhow, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover on PBS. Is there anything else you got, my friend?
No, I think we're set on
I
PBS.
think we're set on PBS, so I think we can move on to the next and the last segment, which is kind of a compare
Yes.
and contrast. And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on here, but we just kind of want to look at what kind of the differences were between shows that were meant to entertain versus educate, and which kind of had the more profound impact on us. And I guess when I look at that, I kind of look at the difference between cable and public television, really, because cable, when you really look at it in hindsight, was more for entertainment value. They were trying to make shows that would appeal to kids, that would entertain them, that would keep them just coming back and watching. Public television was very much centered more on educating and trying to get good
Mm,
messages out there and trying to make sure that, yeah, this can be fun, but know that these lessons are not just for right now. Lessons are for whole life.
yeah,
Nice quote of
yeah.
Mr. Miyagi.
um, to add to that, I think, and I didn't even write this in my notes, but as you were
Sure.
speaking,
Yeah.
this definitely reminded me that a lot of cable TV is meant to, obviously the intention, entertain, but even past that, make money.
Oh,
So
sure.
they're hiring good-looking actor kids to do a storyline made by some guy in a corporate chair,
Yeah.
and I think public television got, the kid from across the street.
Yeah.
Like, going back to Arthur, you had a word from us kids, and every single child was just like us, a random, everyday, normal child. We weren't TV stars. We weren't, the face of Kids Gap or anything like that. Cable TV relied on what was marketable, whether that was how you looked, how famous you were, or through nepotism. And
Sure.
public broadcasting was by the people for the people.
Yes. 100%. You said it perfectly. Yeah, 100%. By the people, for the people, definitely was public broadcasting. I think cable was more trying to figure out what's the next big thing that we can come up with.
Absolutely.
What's the next
It's the
new
intention.
new intention? What's the new concept we can come up
Yeah,
with? And the one other thing I
exactly.
noticed real quick I want to mention before we move down is I always noticed cable shows were often more flashy and they relied on a lot of the state of the art, if that makes sense,
Oh,
of
yeah.
how the shows were done. Whereas public television or the more educational shows, they put more of their emphasis into the lessons they taught and the writing of their shows rather than the visuals and
Yeah.
the flashiness and trying to grab your attention with stuff. And
Well, they
that's
were clear cut.
yeah.
Their objectives were clear cut,
Yep, absolutely.
You
One
knew going into Bill Nye that you were learning about science. Or if you were watching Reading Rainbow, you knew what you were going to be learning that day. Whereas a lot of the cable network TV shows, they were, as John said, they prioritized other things such as humor, adventure, fantasy, without having an explicit lesson. And I think sometimes, though, arguably, the line is blurred
Oh, I
because
do. I agree.
there are a lot of times where I watch Arthur just for the entertainment and I'm not necessarily learning
Yep,
anything.
100%.
And I think that's what makes a show like Arthur so timeless, because not only can you sit down and learn something about the world and about yourself, but you can also tune out and then just enjoy a funny good show.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think really when you come back to that point, it's kind of like, um, that's the beauty of it is like you learn a lesson, you have fun, and then you can go back for more fun.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I loved about PBS, whereas some of the other shows, they didn't necessarily touch on that 100%, but
No.
also I don't think they needed to either. And what I mean by that is like
Mm.
because when you look at a show like Batman the Animated Series, there's
Okay.
morals in there for sure.
Oh yeah.
But Batman isn't here to say, "Hey kids, we're going to learn today." Batman's a crime fighter.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing he can teach somebody really is don't do crime
Yeah.
or I'll come looking for you.
Yeah.
Even though Batman's not real, but still you kind of get those kind of lessons like, don't do
Yeah.
crime. In other shows like, I would even say like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, yeah, it's not teaching any big lessons, but what is Yugi's biggest lesson learned? He has his friends to help him through any
Friendship.
situation, and they have
Absolutely.
the symbol which is on their hand.
Hmm.
When they put their hands together, he realizes by looking at the symbol on his hand that he's bonded to those friends for life, even when they're not physically with
Hmm.
him. And even when he's Yami Yugi, he still can tap between the two.
Absolutely. There's a lot of subtext in these entertaining shows. And I mean, arguably you learn more from the kid-friendly PBS shows as a young impressionable child, and then from these more
Mhm.
entertaining shows you see the educational value in them when you're older, say when you're a teen. Like, I didn't realize that the Spider-Man animated series or the Batman animated series affected my idea of justice so much.
Yeah,
I never
absolutely.
realized that, but through watching it as a kid, obviously it's going to affect me.
100%. That's a big thing if you think
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
and whatnot. But one other thing I kind of wanted to look at was which do you think had we kind of talked about this already. I think we kind of saw, because I was going to say what has a more profound impact on us and why. I think we both kind of talked about that a bit with the fact that, PBS has the bigger impact when you're a younger impressionable child, and as you
Mm,
grow up sometimes these other shows like Batman the Animated Series, like even Yu-Gi-Oh, like some of these other shows basically, they teach you more of the lessons you learn as you grow, the more kind
absolutely.
of street kind of lessons, I guess you could say, for instance,
Yeah.
street smart lessons.
Yeah, like just a quick example. One of the examples I put in my paper for That So Raven, there's an episode where Raven is shopping in what seems to be like a Dillard's, and the manager walks up to her and treats her badly because she's overweight.
Oh, I
And
remember this. Yeah.
yeah, and throughout the episode, Raven basically has to come to terms with the fact that she's beautiful the way that she is, and that beauty standards have been skewed pretty much since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
So that's teaching young teens and young children that you don't have to have a certain body type or a certain skin color to be beautiful. You are
Absolutely.
beautiful.
100%. And I guess if I'm answering for myself, to be honest with you, I would say the only reason public television had the bigger impact is because I was able to get closer with those shows and I was able
Yeah.
to have a bigger connection. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed all the other shows. I had fun, and I love the action-packed fantasy style stories as well. But I could relate to the educational stuff
Oh yeah.
because it was though it's almost like they reached out sometimes when you have nobody else that you feel you can turn to.
Absolutely. In such a formative time of your life, too.
Exactly, absolutely, and it's such a formative time of your life. Arthur is going to be there with his pals to say, "Hey, let's all go to the Sugar Bowl."
Mhm.
Mr. Rogers is, "Hey, I'm here for a visit. Would you
Yeah.
be willing to be my neighbor?"
And life arguably is easier when you're a young child, and it gets harder obviously the older you get. And when
Yeah.
we were very young watching these shows, that's when we needed them most. That's when we needed them most. Sorry.
No, no, absolutely. I think that that's 100% true. But I will say I do take a lot of the lessons that I learned from them and I still apply them to my life to this day
Oh, to this day, absolutely.
and such.
I can
Uh,
think of a few people that should go back and rewatch these shows just to be reminded about kindness and about loving thy neighbor and things like that, you know?
Absolutely. Everybody looks at loving thy neighbor as a religious sentiment. That's a life lesson right there.
That's a life lesson,
That's
absolutely. It's a
just a genuine,
philosophy.
yeah, it's a philosophy. And there's a reason why I think a lot of religions do take it the way they do,
Yeah.
is
It's a
because of that.
beautiful
But
sentiment.
it is a beautiful sentiment. Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what these shows really taught. And speaking of, the next question I have for you is, how did the show shape you into who you are? I think I kind of answer for myself. I kind of, if you're all right, I would love to hear what if you have anything to add on that.
Um, it shaped the way personally, I think I can see the way that it shapes me retrospectively, and I
Okay,
wasn't actively thinking about how it was shaping me as a child,
okay,
but obviously thinking retrospectively, I
sure,
think it shaped me into an adult with more patience.
okay.
It shaped me into an adult who is open to listening to children rather than assuming that I'm better than children because I'm an adult or whatever. I think it shaped me into an adult that can communicate needs and that can be there for people. Pretty much my entire personality is what I'm trying to say.
I hear you 100%. I think I could say the same thing, honestly. It
Yeah,
shaped me into somebody who is willing to try and understand where others are coming from and truly try to take everyone's account to perspective because really in the end everybody has a story.
absolutely.
And whether or not you want to hear the story is up to the individual.
Yeah,
But Sometimes even if you just hear 5 minutes of the story, it'll give you a much bigger perspective than if you don't listen at all.
No, absolutely.
And it's
And
like,
oh, so
I'm sorry,
sorry.
I was
Please
gonna say
continue.
it's almost kind of like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the book To Kill a Mockingbird,
Oh,
Harper Lee's novel.
absolutely.
There's one
Yes.
part in there where Atticus says you never really understand a person until you've considered things from their point of view, and I think that's
Hmm.
what PBS especially tried to do, consider from the other person's point of view. And I think it shaped me into that kind of person, trying to see things from another person's point of view instead of always just trying to sit for myself and try and look in.
Yeah, I definitely have to get in tune with my childhood just so that as an adult, life can get stressful to remind ourselves exactly what you're saying. People go through things, you have to put yourself in other people's shoes, and everyone makes mistakes, everyone's human.
100%. I think that's a beautiful sentiment to try and live your life as best as you can by, you know. Nobody's
Yeah.
ever going to be perfect, but the more you try, the better you get.
Yeah.
100%. And that's kind of a big thing, and I still try to live by, like I said, the lessons that Mr. Rogers taught when we were kids, especially, you made the day a beautiful day by just your being you. That's a beautiful
Mm,
statement in itself, and,
yeah.
and saying, and the best part about it is he always reminded you there's only one person like you, and there's never going to be somebody exactly like you ever again.
Oh,
Kind of
yeah.
like reminding that everyone's unique. You may be like somebody else, but you're not going to be them. You're never.
And that you matter.
Yep, and people can like you exactly as you are. It's so
Mhm.
true. I
It
mean,
is.
that's how so many of us made, our friends, and it's even how you and me got connected, finally.
Absolutely.
All those years
Absolutely.
lately. It's wild. But to almost kind of round out, I do have one question related to the idea of will we still do we still revisit and will we expose to future generations? Maybe even if we, if we are God willing are lucky to have children, would we expose them to the show? So I have one question to ask you. Do you still watch kid shows?
Every single day.
Amen. And I'm going to
Every
be
single
honest, I
day.
do too as well.
Heck yeah, there's no shame in that.
No shame. So, folks, if you want to watch kid shows, you're talking to two people who um unapologetically watch kid shows to this day.
I have a Lego Ninjago poster in my background
I got Arthur
and some
DVDs behind me.
toys. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I got Arthur behind me. I'm wearing an
You're
Arthur
wearing
shirt to
Arthur,
this day.
exactly.
Um, those shows are really kind of what keep me sane in this ever-changing wild world.
Oh man, especially with the way the world goes every single day, one can't help but find solace in a show that is maybe 10 to 20 minutes long that reminds you of what it feels like to be a kid.
And as much as I know I've spoken out about binge culture and streaming culture, the best part now is a lot of these shows are on these avenues and you can
Yeah.
just binge them one after another. So you're having hours and hours of fun.
Absolutely. And if you can't find them on your streaming sites, they are available on archive.org.
Oh, yes. Remember archive.org, folks. That can be your best friend in the darkest of times, especially with
Oh
PBS
yes.
shows, because PBS being publicly funded, I think allows for these shows to be there because of the avenue they strive for.
Absolutely. And that is a perfect segue for me because before we wrap up today's episode, it's important to remember
Yes.
just how vital public broadcasting and networks like PBS have been, not only in entertaining us, but in educating and nurturing generations of kids. In a world that's increasingly driven by algorithms, commercial interests, trends, preserving these spaces where quality, thoughtful, and inclusive content thrives is more important than ever today in 2025. They offer a rare kind of intentional programming that supports learning, creativity, and community without the pressure of ratings or trends. Like, come on, people, it was free. We
Yep.
need to back this up. So let's keep championing and supporting public broadcasting because the impact it has on our children and the adults they grow into is truly priceless. And John and I are super passionate about this, as you can tell.
100%. I think what you said was incredible. Public television is so viable. It's what shaped me into the person I am today. And really, when you look at it, public television is something that many people have used as a source of being able to be able to get, amazing shows, amazing television, but moreover, sometimes the education that sometimes the schools don't provide,
Absolutely.
and maybe even can't provide at times. And really, it's
Hmm.
because of the public broadcasting system that so many people were able to have friends that, would always be there. It's almost like Cheers. You want to go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. It's kind of that concept when you're watching a PBS show. And,
Yeah.
it's such an important thing to me. And, I just want to say, for anyone out there, I know the topic of public television is being discussed heavily. Continue to support public television. Be that viewer like you and help give to your local PBS station to keep this
Hmm.
format alive and to keep it going for many more generations to come.
Oh, yeah. The last thing we want is to talk about PBS in the past tense. We want to keep it going.
Absolutely. We can't let that happen. There's no way that
Hmm.
that can happen. All right, my friend, that was beautifully stated. I do just have one question real quick before we go.
Shoot.
Will you expose these to your future children?
Assuming I have children, I think that I
Exactly.
would absolutely only show them these. I don't think I would show them anything current.
Good. Good.
What about
That's
you? What about you?
absolutely. I think there's so much you can learn out of it. I will say, as to whether or not they like them, that's up to them.
Oh, absolutely.
But I would still try to make sure that I pass it on and make them know that, yeah, this is on when I was young, but I want you to watch this because this is going to shape you as you grow. And I want you to
Absolutely.
be the best of who you can be. And I feel that this is a guide that can help you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna write that down so that I can say that exact thing
Just back it
to
up
my
and
future
listen to what I
kids.
said later, and then you can write it down.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Alrighty, my friend. What a great episode we had.
Oh man,
Um,
fantastic.
if you listen to this, you probably see that this is a two-part episode. Part one aired yesterday, and today this is part two. So, thank you for sticking with us through both of these. We really had a great time. The reason we decided to do this, folks, is because we realized that we had so much and how passionate we are, as you can hear, about media, especially about PBS, and we wanted to make sure we could get through it thoroughly as well. And so that's the reason we chose to do this. But aside from that, folks, I think this is another episode in the books. What do you think, my friend?
I think it's a solid one, and I'm actually gonna go watch some TV right now.
There you go. I think I'll probably do the same. Well, anyhow, folks, I will go ahead and take us out. Thank you again once for listening to another episode of Rewind Room. We are so happy you guys were able to join us on this new episode. We had a whole lot of fun talking about a lot of the shows we grew up with and a lot of the elements of them that made them so memorable to us. And hopefully, we were able to bring out some memories for you guys. If you could please, we are on every major podcasting site out there. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple. We are on Outcast. We are on Amazon. We are on Audible. We are on so many different forms. We're even on YouTube. So if you'd like to
Yes.
see a video version of our podcast, go ahead and head over to our YouTube Rewind Room Podcast Official. And make sure while you're there to click that subscribe button and hit that little bell to get notified about all our new episodes and maybe even videos that we'll be posting in the future on the channel, not even just related to the podcast. You never know. Maybe we'll do some reviews on there. Maybe we'll talk about some more subjects in depth outside of the show. So always stay
Absolutely.
tuned to the YouTube. Maybe you'll even see a live stream one day. We've
Yeah.
been trying to get that going as well. The possibilities are endless, folks. So make sure you stay
Endless.
up to date with that. Make sure to follow us on all wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure we love to know that. And also we understand that we have listeners now from outside of the United States. So for our overseas listeners, thank you for giving your time of day to listen to two Americans talk about their past. So
Yeah,
we
seriously. Thank you guys.
so thank you very much. Without further ado, my name is John,
And I'm Ramona.
and we will catch you on the rewind.
See you guys.
Take care, everyone.